want to point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I want to hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 485th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey, that is me, and the amazing Tom Fennell, who is not in the flesh here, but is in his pajamas.
I'm in the flesh at home.
Tom is not a ghost, thank goodness. However, he's still...
I'm good. Wait, where I can't walk up to the studio anymore.
Yeah, I'm getting that way myself too, as a matter of fact. But nevertheless, you know, that's what happens when you get really old, like me, and Tom is even older. Okay, this is material that we're reporting that has come up in the news in the last week, today being the 18th of August, 2022. In the news involving energy and climate change, and it comes from my blog, geoharvey.com, where I post about 15 articles, usually, links to 15 articles every day. And then Tom and I talk about, generally speaking, 3 a day.
21.
21, that's the number we talk about in a week.
I don't think it's ever been other than 21.
I think you might be right. I don't know. But...
3 a day.
What's that?
We do 3 a day.
Yeah, we do 3 a day usually. And anybody who wants to see what we're talking about can look down that way. I always get that wrong because when you look into a monitor, you feel like it should be like a mirror, and it isn't. It's the opposite. If you're watching this and you scroll down on a computer screen, you can actually see the file that we use and the website that we use. Which would have names like Energy Week 485. And you can go to those or to geoharvey.com and find the articles on the appropriate days and click on them and read the original articles.
Well, you do a daily blog.
That's right, I do.
And this is basically the best of the blog.
That's basically what it is.
It's like the 3 bests a day that you've put. How many? You probably put about 15 or 20 on your blog a day, and this.
I put 10 to 15.
Yeah.
10 to 15. I rarely I've done 16, but usually I only do 15 at most, and a lot of that has to do with the way that things look and so forth. I like to have good pictures.
Well, all of these things come from somewhere else, and we usually mention where they are. Like the first one's going to be coming up from an outfit called Renews.
That's right. And why don't we just go straight to that?
Yeah, well, some of these are very well worth looking at. I'll try to bring them to your attention.
Yeah.
Some of them are very long.
A couple of them. Yeah. The ones...
on your hands and you want to pursue some of these further, just... Click on the link. That's
right. Okay, our first article is, as you said, from Renews. Do you have a title for it?
Ohio court rules that Icebreaker, which is the name of a project, can proceed.
Yes, the proposed 6-turbine Icebreaker offshore wind project in Lake Erie, it's interesting that it's in Lake Erie, has received a favorable decision from the Ohio Supreme Court, which has ruled the project may proceed. That's all the way up to the Supreme Court. The court held that the...
Ohio Supreme Court.
What?
The Ohio Supreme Court.
The Ohio Supreme Court, yeah. The court held the Ohio Power Sitting Board properly issued a permit that allows the project to go ahead.
Siting. The Ohio Power Siting Board.
Siting Board.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And what we have, the picture that we have is a picture of a test turbine that went up some time ago, I believe, with Cincinnati in the background. And
well, that's it. No, No, it can't be Cincinnati. Cincinnati's way down. You mean it's Cleveland?
I'm sorry, Cleveland. Cleveland in the background. Yes, that's right.
Yes, that could very well be Cleveland. It's certainly not Cincinnati.
Well, maybe somebody has good binoculars, but you're right. Cincinnati's a long ways away.
Well, it's in Kentucky.
No lake, almost to Kentucky, and there's no lake there. This is Cleveland. So anyway, Tom's. I say stupid things, and Tom catches me. You got more on this?
Well, it was a 6-1 decision, and the court allowed them to begin construction, but they still require more data before the company can operate the turbines.
Yes.
They gave the conditions were sufficient to protect birds and bats and to ensure that the facility represented the minimum adverse environmental impact. So they do their homework.
Yeah, I think so. And one of the big problems that we haven't talked about on this is siting a wind turbine, an offshore wind turbine in fresh water means that the company is going to have to contend with ice. And that's not easy. So.
Well, they'll work it out because, Lake Erie gets pretty close to frozen over every year.
Usually, yeah. Although I don't think that it is as much as it used to be. It used to be that Lake Michigan would freeze all the way down. Last year, I don't think it froze at all. Climate change is in fact changing things. Okay, go to the next one.
Yeah, we got a picture here of the UN building in New York, and let me say, I don't recognize it.
I don't recognize it either, honestly. But that's this says that that's the UN building. And this is from RTE, which, by the way, is an Irish organization, I think.
It is Radio Television Ireland.
Okay. Why do the Irish?
Television Iran.
Okay. Very good. All right. You got a title for this?
Yeah, UN Security Council to discuss the Ukraine nuclear plant crisis, which is a big crisis, guys.
Yes, indeed it is. The UN Security.
This is a big problem.
Yeah, the UN Security Council will hold an emergency meeting, which of course by this time they have held, to address the crisis at the Ukraine's Zaporizhia nuclear complex. Kiev and Moscow have accused each other of having bombed the power plant. A source in the Security Council presidency says that the meeting would be on the 11th of August, and I hate to say it, but I don't think any real progress was made.
Bad things are going on there, and it looks like it's all Putin's doing.
That's the way I think it is. Putin and the Russians are complaining about the Ukrainians, but the idea of bombing a nuclear power plant...
He didn't bomb the Russians.
Why would the Ukrainians bomb a nuclear power plant in Ukraine? Well, to get the Russians who have put artillery at the plant out, and the whole business of having artillery at a nuclear power plant, I think personally,
that's ridiculous.
It should be a crime against humanity. It should be called a crime against humanity. It should just be that way. This looks like Russia is being a terrorist state to me.
Well, it looks exactly like that, and the president knows that, and he's calling on the international community to come to his aid.
Yes.
We have to immediately to force Russian forces to leave the occupied nuclear plant.
Right. Okay, do you want to...
Because of Russian nuclear blackmail.
Yes, that's what he said, nuclear blackmail. That's what it is. And what they've done is they've put artillery there, and they're shooting at Ukrainian cities using artillery that's right next to the nuclear reactors. And the reason they're doing that is because it's kind of hard to...
they didn't think if somebody's going to react and shoot back at them.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, our next item is from Jalopnik.
I just want to mention quickly, this nuclear plant, which is in southern Ukraine, is Europe's largest.
Yeah, it has 6 reactors.
It's been occupied by the Russian troops since March.
It has 6 reactors, and every single one of them by itself is half again the size of Vermont Yankee. So this place is 9 times as much as the Vermont Yankee.
Well,
And
it's a big.
it's big.
Europe's largest.
Yeah, it is. Okay, our next item is from Jalopnik. It is from...
A picture of the Ford parking garage.
Yes, indeed. And what do you have for title for the article?
Ford makes the largest purchase of renewable energy from a utility in American history.
Now, that is quite something to talk about.
By the way, are those solar panels on the roof?
They are indeed. So,
Good Ford.
yeah, Ford makes the largest purchase of... Oh, you already read that. Ford Motor Company took a major step toward its renewable energy goal. It announced the largest renewable energy purchase ever made in the United States from a utility, 650 megawatts of renewably generated electricity from DTE Energy. That's almost exactly the same as the Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant was.
Yes, I was just thinking that, and it's getting close to a megawatt.
Yes, it is. 2/3 of a gigawatt. So,
Well, this outfit DTE is appropriately situated to do that.
yes,
They control a lot of goodies: 18 wind parks, 32 solar parks,
yeah,
with a total of 2.5 gigawatts from 11 million solar panels.
11
They have
million.
a nuclear power plant. They got 4 coal plants, 2 of which are going to be closed shortly.
Yes,
And their natural gas facility is the most efficient prime power plant in Michigan.
okay.
So they have the resources, this outfit DTE.
Yes, they do. They have resources.
Which
Okay,
comes the initials for Detroit Energy.
yes, which makes it kind of appropriate for Ford to be buying from them. Okay, we're up to Friday, August 5th. And
Then we got the Aurora.
Aurora, that's right. We have a picture of an aurora.
The world's largest ice sheet is crumbling faster than previously thought. That's not good news.
No, it's not. This is from CNN. Antarctica's coastal glaciers are shedding icebergs more rapidly than nature can replenish the crumbling ice, doubling the previous estimate of losses of the world's largest ice sheet over the last 25 years. A satellite analysis published by the journal Nature showed this. And by the way, the same day that this article appeared, another article appeared saying that making a very similar observation about Greenland. The big ice sheets are melting much faster than anybody had realized.
And raising
What's
sea
that?
level.
Yeah.
Raising sea levels.
That's right. That is correct. And it's very concerning. They didn't realize it, but the water under the ice is much warmer than they had thought it was, and that means the ice
is from the bottom.
That's right. It's melting it from the bottom. And the interesting thing is,
on the top.
the interesting thing is that as this ice melts and this ice is floating, it unblocks glaciers that are not floating, and that means that those glaciers move.
Slipping off into the sea and raising sea level.
That's correct. That's what it is. Now, I want to tell you, are we done with that article, Tom?
Well, failure to curb greenhouse gas emissions would risk contributing many feet of sea level rise over the next few centuries.
Yes.
That's the takeaway right there.
Absolutely, which means that if you are living in a city like New York, you could expect to swim to work.
That might be interesting.
Yep. Are we done with that article, Tom?
I think we are. We got
Okay.
an interesting picture of an unusual car.
It's Tom's next car. Don't let him say not. It's Tom's next car. And here it is. Here it
The
is.
Aptera is the name of the car.
Yeah, the Aptera is the name of a car. Aptera means without wings. And the reason why it has that name is because it looks like an airplane that doesn't have wings. This is from Clean
Well, that
Technica.
picture there is the car as it's going to appear on the street, evidently.
Yeah, except on the street it would have its doors closed.
I would think. And a license plate on it.
Yeah, probably that too.
Well, Aptera is about ready to enter production for these things.
Yes, and
But they're not playing games. And this is a bare bones car, but what do you need?
well,
You need a 6-passenger station wagon to drive to work 3 miles a day?
actually, there's a lot more. Could you read the title for the article, please?
Aptera reveals Gamma vehicle interior.
The Gamma
Gamma is their designation for the progress they're making in it.
Right. A social media post by Aptera shows great progress is being made toward its production vehicle. Not only is Aptera in the last phase before production design, they have kitted the EV out with a complete interior and exterior, something they had never done in the previous phases. Now, this car that you're looking at, in its cheapest form, would cost about $27,000. This will hold 2 people.
That's, by today's standards, that's cheap.
It is. This will hold 2 people plus 1 large dog. And that's not a joke. They mean a large dog. It is actually a much larger vehicle than it looks like. It was designed for high-speed aerodynamics. It has an almost incredible efficiency. If you look at the top of the car carefully in the picture, you can see that it's got solar cells on it. The most expensive version of this is $47,000 with the solar cells all over it. And
we'll talk about that again with regard to other cars, because they're getting a lot more expensive than that.
Yes. And the solar cells gain it about 27 miles per day in most places, which means that if you're driving one of these things in Vermont and you're commuting, say, 12 miles to work, you might not have to charge it more than once or twice a year. And
it could work quite well.
In the most...
It's a lot bigger than it looks like in that picture.
Yeah. And in the most,
you don't have to see human beings in front or behind an internal combustion engine. There's a lot of flexibility in how you can lay things out.
Yes.
Yeah. And for example, it's got a lot of headroom.
It's got a lot of headroom. And the other thing is, in its most expensive form, it has a range of 1,000 miles. So you could drive 1,000 miles before you have to charge it. Anybody going to Chicago? I mean, really?
Let's put it out and have lunch and come back.
Right. So, are we done with that one, Tom?
Yeah, I think we are. We got another picture of the Drax power plant.
Yeah, here we have the Drax power plant, and
I had to search through it to get a picture where I could actually recognize the plant. It's the same picture. It's just a different version of it. I linked it up.
Okay.
There actually is a plant in that picture.
Yes, there is. You can kind of see it. It's right dead center in the middle of the picture. There's a bunch of cooling towers that look like cooling towers of a nuclear plant, but they're not. They're cooling towers of what was originally a coal-burning plant. What do you have for a title for the article, Tom?
Burning imported wood in a Drax power plant doesn't make sense. And I was wondering what a Drax was.
Well, Drax is just the name of the plant.
The name of the company.
Yeah. And this is the importing of wood to burn in the Drax power station is, quote, not sustainable, end quote.
Well, and coming from Virginia and South Carolina and
Georgia.
Georgia.
And, quote, doesn't make any sense, end quote. According to the Energy and Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, that's Business and Energy Secretary of the UK, he told a private meeting of MPs, that's members of Parliament, this week. Scientists have been saying this for a long time. So there you have it.
Well, about 80% of the wood pellets come from North America.
Yes.
And transporting these pellets halfway across the world doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, and they're being clear cut. Now, they're being clear cut from plantations that are there to burn, to grow
these
wood.
are not natural forests.
They're not natural forests, but they are still being clear cut.
They're being clear cut, yeah. Well, that's the way they were growing. These things they're all like soldiers standing in a field.
That's right. They're basically in a monoculture situation. You don't have birds living in the trees because there's nothing to eat there.
Well, scientists have long argued that burning wood to produce electricity is far from green.
Yes.
It can even increase the CO2 emissions
Yeah.
that are driving the climate crisis.
Yep.
We should end it. And getting it from Louisiana and sustainable, getting it from Louisiana isn't sustainable.
Yes, that's right.
There's a little takeaway there. It can take 100 years to grow a tree, but 100 seconds to burn it.
That's depressing.
And
Okay.
they don't think that harvesting the wood damages forests.
Yeah, and one thing that we could bear in mind here is that forests are not the best way to sequester carbon. They're nowhere near as efficient in carbon sequestration as peat bogs. So
That's just what we talked about last week.
we did indeed. Okay, our next item is from CNN.
If you look at that picture, you might recognize it. It's the famous Hollywood sign
That's right. This
out
is
of Los Angeles.
the Hollywood sign backwards, and if you look at the horizon, just a little bit left of center, you can actually see where downtown Los Angeles is. And this
This picture's taken from the back of the sign.
yes. So this is from CNN. What do you have for a title for the article, Tom?
Well, this is good. This is not good news.
No, it's not.
Well, there's a lot of good pictures in this article. If you want to look at it, it comes
Yep.
from CNN. A disastrous megaflood is coming to California.
Yes, and it could be the most expensive natural disaster in history. A study by Science Advances shows climate change has doubled, that is multiplied by 2, the chance of a disastrous flood happening in California in the next 4 decades. Experts say it would be unlike anything anyone alive has ever experienced. And by the way, as climate change goes on, the likelihood of a flood of that nature just gets bigger.
It's getting very large.
Yeah, this has to do with what they call atmospheric rivers, where the jet stream is pummeling one area of the coast and just bringing a long, continuous belt of precipitation to one
It's sort of
area.
like what hit Ohio last week.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the
It's
snowfall.
raining.
Yeah, that's right. It's
You have 14 inches or something like that. That's unheard of.
Yes, it is. That's right. And before that, it was Eastern Kentucky and St. Louis, although there
There's
wasn't.
St. Louis, right?
Yeah, and it produced a lot of damage. Okay,
And Texas got a lot of rain in one. Southern Texas.
You know, this reminds me of a song that was done by the Limelighters. And they sing, the words are, it's rioting, there's rioting in Africa, there's starving in Spain, and they go on and on.
Hurricanes in Portugal and Texas needs rain.
You know the song. That's right. Okay, we should go on.
California's sure the, quote, big one, but might not be what you think. It's not an earthquake, and it isn't a mega drought. It's actually the exact opposite, a mega flood.
That's right. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica, and what do you have for that, Tom?
Well, we got a picture of an electric truck.
We do indeed.
And Tesco is a very large UK supermarket chain.
Right.
And it says Tesco electrifies deliveries to more than 400 city center stores in Greater London.
Tesco has become the first retailer to launch a zero-emission electric lorry to make deliveries from its distribution centers in city centers in the UK, and that is deliveries to stores. Electric trucks will help improve air quality in urban areas, and their use should be prioritized. So this is something that is regarded as a very good thing.
Well, this is sort of a prototype, but it looks like it's working.
Yes, that's right. It does.
Well, there's an interesting thing about this truck. Volta makes it, in a Volta full electric lorry. The driver sits in the center
Yes.
with cameras replacing wing mirrors, minimizing blind spots and allowing better visibility.
Yes.
So he's right in the middle of this thing.
Yes. Well, they're getting better at it. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica, and we have a picture for it of Ford Lightning pickups. These are the F-150 Lightnings.
The electric version of the F-150.
That's right. That's what it is.
Ford Lightning. Orders open again, but prices are up.
Yeah.
What about the prices? I'll mention them later. They're scary.
Yes, Ford is taking orders for the F-150 Lightning again. They had stopped taking orders because they had so many back ordered. But prices are higher. That was expected, but there are 2 new reasons to make an order. There's 10 more miles of range. That doesn't sound like a lot to me. And an available feature to help with hauling.
Well, prices used to start at just under 40 grand, huh? But now they start at just under 47, ranging all the way up to $97,000. Can you imagine
Oh my gosh.
$97,000 car?
I can imagine a $97,000 car. In fact, I've got a brother who has only owned 1 car in his entire life.
You've talked about that. It's a Duesenberg or something.
No, it's a 1937 Aston Martin. You know,
Okay, Aston Martin,
but
Duesenberg.
the point of the whole thing is he lives in New York. Why would he own a car? A car is a nuisance for a person who lives in New York. A parking space
Tell me
costs
about it. I
more
lived in New York, and I
Yeah.
got along well without a car.
Yeah, people do it all the time. I get along well in Brattleboro without a car.
It's a nuisance. In New York, it's a nuisance because you got to move it every day.
Yes, and in Brattleboro, if I had a car, I would not be able to eat. I wouldn't have enough money. Sorry.
Well, these new cars range up to $97,000. That's $100 grand for a car.
Yeah, 2 of them. You've got the cost of a new house.
And it doesn't include finance charges, dealer processing expenses, destination and delivery fees, as well as government fees and taxes.
Believe me,
filing costs, emission testing fees are not included.
I have regarded
a lot of money for a pickup truck, let me tell you.
I have regarded investing in a vehicle as the worst investment you can make. I mean, there are things that you can do that make sense, but generally speaking,
as an investment, it sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're up to Sunday, August 7th, and we've got a picture of mussels.
They are mussels,
There
absolutely.
they are. I love mussels.
Yeah, mussels are cool.
I went down.
Well, can eating fish ever be sustainable? I never even thought about that.
Yeah, seafood includes everything from farmed prawns to wild mackerel. It can have an array of environmental impacts from high carbon emissions to the effects of overfishing, slaughtered bycatch, and antibiotic pollution. But some seafood can be a healthy source of food with a low carbon, low environmental impact. And by the way, the reason I chose a picture of mussels for this article was because mussels were one of the ones that were listed as the best.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right.
And the day I put this up, I went down to the co-op. The mussels were something over $3 a pound. And the first time I bought mussels years ago, they were 19 cents.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not each.
Not each, no, for a pound. That's what it was.
Per capita consumption of seafood around the world has doubled since the 1960s.
Yeah.
It's now up to 20 kilograms. I guess that's about 40 pounds, huh?
20 kilograms? It's 40,
20 kilograms.
48 pounds?
Okay.
It's a lot.
I said 40 pounds, so it's 48.
Yeah.
Per person. That's a lot. Warning bells should go off if your supplier can't tell you where your fish comes from.
That's true. By the way, I misspoke. It's 44, but nevertheless.
Gonna argue with you.
Yeah. Okay, our next item is from the BBC,
This is funny.
and we have a picture of a golf hole. Now, I want to point out to everybody, this isn't one of the golf holes that the article is about, because this golf hole happens to be empty. So what do you have? What's the title, Tom?
That's going to tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
This is funny. This is really funny. Climate activists fill golf holes with cement after a water ban exemption.
Yeah, and you know, well, it's funny that they did it, I suppose, but this exemption made me furious. Climate activists in southern France have filled golf holes with cement to protest against the exemption of golf greens from water bans amid the country's severe drought. The golf greens are getting water while 100 French villages are running out of water to drink.
Well, from the article, it says we continue to protect the rich and powerful.
That's true.
Well, golf greens would die in 3 days without water.
Well,
and the article says, and I quote, a golf course without water is like an ice rink without ice. So economic madness takes precedence over ecological reason.
right. The ecological reason would not be don't water the green, have it be restored after the drought. Really, I think ecological reason would be don't have the green. Do something else with that piece of property, because a golf course, is that really a good idea? And I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there who are getting out their little dolls of me to push pins in it so that I can suffer.
Well, if you look at golf, basically it's a rich man's sport.
It's a rich man's sport. Golf, by the way, was banned in Scotland under Mary Queen of Scots because the archers were playing golf instead of practicing archery.
How about that?
Okay, I'm going to go on.
There's a form of golf in which you use bows and arrows.
What's that?
There's a form of golf in which you use bows and arrows.
Oh, no. Okay,
Yeah.
the next article is from Clean Technica, and we have
We got a picture of an Autonomy. That's the Model Y. Autonomy is the company.
The company that owns the vehicle, not the company that made it. That is a Tesla. Okay.
Correct.
What do you got for a title?
Autonomy orders 23,000 more electric vehicles.
After a lot of recent news about Autonomy, the biggest EV subscription company in the United States, we have even more.
Explain what a subscription company is.
Well, they buy the
It's kind of
car.
a form of leasing.
Yeah, they buy the cars and then they rent them to people on a subscription. The company has just ordered 23,000 EVs from 17 automakers to expand and diversify its subscription fleet. Up till now, it only offered Tesla Model 3 and Model Y, and this is interesting to me. 17 automakers. They're buying cars from 17 automakers. That's kind of amazing.
It's almost everybody.
Yeah, I would think. Tom, we're falling way behind here, so we have to. Is there more on that one?
Well, let's skip on to it. Let's
go to the next.
Autonomy subscriptions offer an easier and more affordable way to get an EV.
Yeah, they do. I looked at the numbers.
No leasing contract, no large upfront payment, and a freedom to jump from one EV to another as your desires change. So
Yes.
it's a short-term lease.
Yes. Okay, we're up to Monday, August 8th. We have a picture of what is the picture of? An Xpeng G9.
That's a Chinese-made car.
Yeah, and believe me,
The first ones that they're exporting.
the Chinese are so far ahead of Americans in the manufacture of electric vehicles and a whole bunch of other things relating to energy and renewable energy.
Well, they're doing their homework here because the name of the article is Xpeng bringing truly ultra-fast charging to town.
Yeah, this is from Clean Technica. Chinese EV startup Xpeng is on the verge of releasing an EV that will be able to charge at a wicked fast pace. According to the company, the G9 will be able to gain 200 kilometers, which is 124 miles, of driving range in just 5 minutes.
What's the biggest drawback of EV cars is how long it takes to charge them.
Yeah, but for many people, charging an EV, for most people, charging an EV means plugging it in. You could plug it into a 110 outlet and leave it overnight, and it will probably give you...
Cars themselves, they got panels on the roof.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Okay. The company is actually rolling out chargers in addition to that. So
Yep.
More on that, Tom?
I mean, this is progress. I mean, the EVs, they only represent a small number of the total cars made. But the internal combustion engine, let's face it, guys, it's over.
It's over, yeah, and this is becoming clearer and clearer. Okay, we're up to, we have an article now on from BBC about oceans.
Oh, you got a picture of a fishing boat.
We do indeed.
As world leaders make a fifth attempt to pass the UN Oceans Treaty.
Yeah, world leaders will meet at the UN in New York for more talks to save the world's oceans from overexploitation. The UN High Seas Treaty has been through 10 years of negotiations and has still yet to be signed. If agreed, it would put 30% of the world's oceans into conservation areas by 2030. Clearly, this is not happening fast enough.
Well, somebody's dragging their feet. I haven't been following it closely enough, but 10 years of negotiations is ridiculous.
Well, there are countries that really don't
They're
want,
dragging their feet.
and quite intentionally, they don't want this to go
Absolutely.
as fast. And the one that comes to mind is Japan, because Japan is much more dependent than, say, the United States on ocean production. So they want to make sure that they are not prevented from harvesting. They're one of the last countries that has a whaling fleet, and as a matter of fact, Iceland is another one that's very dependent. That picture might be of Iceland in the background, but I think it's probably Norway. Okay, do you want to go on, Tom?
I can argue with you.
Yeah. Well,
the treaty would place parts of the world's oceans into a network of marine protected areas.
Right.
Environmental impact assessments would be carried out before allowing commercial activities like deep sea mining to go ahead.
Yes.
And protecting the world's oceans is important for human populations, as so many people rely on the seas for food.
Yes. We've got to come up with new solutions
Leisure
for food.
activities.
Yeah,
It is estimated that the global marine ecosystems are worth more than 41 trillion pounds.
This is a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah. Okay, our next item comes from Clean Technica. We have a picture of a car, which is a Tesla Model 3.
It doesn't have a grill.
Doesn't have a grill. Does have a license plate which appears to have been blocked out or painted over or something.
Yep.
What do you have for title?
BEV, battery electric vehicle. Demand is increasing. ICEV, internal combustion engines. Demand is decreasing across Europe.
Yeah. Compared to Excuse you. Compared to 2021, new car sales have dropped by 11% to 20% in Germany, France, Spain, Italy, and the UK. Full battery electric vehicles demand is increasing, while all types of internal combustion engines, and that includes hybrids, are falling in demand all across Europe. So basically
this is natural. It's happening. I mean, it's going to take a while, but there will be internal combustion engines in the future.
I really wonder how long they're going to last. You know, they're saying they should be 50% electric vehicles by 2030. I wonder whether people are going to be interested in buying internal combustion cars in 2030 at all. And when the demand collapses, the demand will collapse. And that means one day they'll just stop making them, I think. Anyway.
Inevitable.
Yeah.
They really don't make sense anymore.
No, they don't. They're too expensive. Yeah. Gasoline-powered, diesel oil-powered cars are too expensive. Okay. Our next item, this is a picture of Kiev, which is from, and the article is from Reuters.
It looks like a nice town.
Looks, yeah, but you know, this was at a point when they weren't bombing it. So.
Yeah. Well, the article states, and I quote, UN can facilitate IAEA power plant visit, but Russia puts conditions. Well, the IAEA is the International Atomic Energy Agency, and they're the inspectors in this particular case.
Right. The UN has logistics and security capacity to support a visit by the International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors to the Ukraine Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, according to a spokesman. But a Russian diplomat imposed conditions, saying that routing the mission through Kiev was too dangerous, which I think is kind of disingenuous. You know, we don't want you to go through Kiev because it's dangerous. And why is it dangerous? Well, because we're bombing
That's
it.
what we're doing.
Yeah, we're bombing it every once in a while. You know, maybe you should go through someplace in Russia instead. And of course, going to this place through Russia is not safe either. So, you have more?
In close contact with the IAEA, the UN Secretariat has assessed that it has in Ukraine the logistics and security capacity to be able to support any IAEA mission to the nuclear power plant. So this is a huge risk.
Yes, it is. The plant is.
Picture of a butterfly coming up.
Yeah, we do. Let's put it up. There it is. Okay.
1/3 of the food we eat is at risk because the climate crisis is endangering butterflies and bees.
And by the way, it's not just butterflies and bees, it's also bats. And I did
yes,
look.
The article mentions that.
Yeah. Species of bees, butterflies, and bats are all pollinators. Without them, fruit, vegetables, and other plants wouldn't be pollinated. Some species. And that's a major problem for our food supply. They are in decline because of climate change. And by the way, the bats that are involved here are bats of species primarily that live in tropical areas. And they are fruit bats and things of that nature.
Well, more than half of the bat populations in the United States are in severe decline.
Oh, yeah. You know, the same thing as, well, we've been told that...
The monarch butterfly itself is close to extinction.
Well...
It's doing okay in the United States, but in other parts of the world, it's...
The monarch butterfly's situation is rather complicated.
Well, they make a huge migration every year.
Yes, they do. The migration that they do is not by a single butterfly. A butterfly from Vermont could easily go to Texas. As far, I don't know exactly what their routes are, but
no, we're talking about Western United States.
It won't go all the way. It'll go part of the way, and then it'll lay an egg, and the larva will come out, and it'll turn into a butterfly, and that butterfly continues, and then that lays an egg, and we have a new generation, and it's like 3 generations to go south, and then 3 generations to go north, and so this is a multi-generational thing, very complicated, and the migrating butterflies are at risk, but the monarch population has a genetically identical non-migrating group that is apparently not at risk. So it's a complicated thing, but nevertheless.
Well, overall, it's perilously close to extinction.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be I could go, you know, at certain times a year I could go home and find monarch butterfly caterpillars easily. I haven't seen one
Used to
for
be
years.
common around here. They're not anymore. They're
Yeah.
still around, but they're not as common as they used to be.
I see one at certain times of year almost every day. But in the old days, I would have seen multiple butterflies. They would come by several
Absolutely.
times a day. Okay, we have a...
Well, 1 out of every 3 bites of food that we eat is directly connected to a pollinator.
That's right.
That includes tequila.
That includes tequila. And I think that tequila is bats, isn't it, that are involved?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we are up to we have an article. This is a picture of Heidelberg. I've been in Heidelberg.
Nice, Tom.
Have you been in Heidelberg, Tom?
I haven't been in Heidelberg. No, I've been in Germany, but I haven't been to Heidelberg.
Yeah, I have been in Heidelberg. It's a very pleasant place, I think. I enjoyed being there. Okay, this is from the BBC.
German households face a levy of hundreds of euros on their gas bills.
Wow. This is amazing. I looked at this and thought, what? Is this real? German households will have to pay hundreds of euros more each year for gas under a levy to help energy companies cover the cost of replacing Russian supplies. For an average family of 4, the additional charge will be 480 euros. And right now, a euro and a dollar are pretty much about the same. That's about
about 500 pounds, 500 bucks.
Yeah, and it's just according to Verivox. So these people in Germany are they're facing some pretty big bills. And this is not
before the Ukraine war, Germany imported more than half its gas from Russia.
Right.
And now, since the war, gas prices have soared.
They've also soared in the United States.
Not as badly as they've soared in Germany.
They have soared badly. Let me see what we've got here. Yeah, in the news today, I noticed that they were at the highest price level in the United States since, I think, 2008. And the price was more than 500% of what it was 2 years ago.
More than 500%.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, 2 years ago, it hit a low because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
2 years later, it's hitting a high. And this is part of the problem with fossil fuels, is that they do that. Okay, should we go on, Tom?
Well, Germany has encouraged its citizens to reduce their energy consumption.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In June, these measures are part of that.
Yeah.
And they've got other measures, including dimming streetlights, turning off fountains, and lowering the temperatures in the swimming pools. How can they do that?
Well,
let's move right on to Wednesday.
Let's do that. Okay, we have
the Hoover Dam.
We have a picture here of the Hoover Dam. This is from the reservoir side. So
I've been to the Hoover Dam.
What you're seeing here should be completely covered with water up to the level of the top of the dam. And that lower area in the ground that's lighter color, that should all be underwater.
It'll be underwater.
And those things that you see there that look like towers standing in the middle of the water, those things are not 6 feet tall. Those are, I don't know how tall they are, but my guess is that water is...
It's dangerously low.
Yeah, it's 60 feet, 80 feet, 100 feet. I don't know how low it is, but it's low. And what do you have for a title for this?
Takeaways from today's report on Lake Mead and the Colorado River.
The federal government announced that the Colorado River will operate in a Tier 2 shortage condition for the first time starting in January, as the West's historic drought is taking a severe toll on Lake Mead. States are facing mandatory cuts in water use. And by the way, the states were supposed to come up with an agreement among themselves on how they were going to reduce the water consumption. They were supposed to make this agreement by the 15th of August. They did not come to an agreement. That whole talk collapsed, so the federal government has been asked to go in and impose something on them.
Well, a lot of this water from the Colorado River is used for growing food.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of it's used for generating electricity. And by the
But
way,
you can use electricity, generate electricity with it and still grow food.
that is true, absolutely true. And a lot of it is used for supplying water to cities, and the business of generating electricity and supplying it to cities is a bit more complicated because the cities usually take their water from the reservoir, not from below the reservoir. So, yeah. Do you have more on that, Tom?
No, I don't, and I'm a little bit confused here with my notes, but I think that this is the next one, I think.
Okay.
Can renewable energy visions of the future actually be within reach?
That's not the next one. The next one is about car tires. Let's go to that.
Let's go directly to the car tires then.
Yes.
There's a nice picture of a field full of car tires.
Oh, man, you call that a nice picture? Yeah.
Called old tires. I wonder where they figured that one out.
Yeah.
Well, what the article says is car tires are disastrous for the environment. And it's true. They don't go away. This startup wants to be a driving force in fixing the problem.
Right. And this is from CNN. You know, think about it. You replace your car tires because they got worn down. Well, where did all that material go? Here's the answer. The material they lose becomes dust. Around 6.1 million metric tons of tire dust end up in our atmosphere and waterways annually. A startup in London called the Tire Collective, and they misspell tire. It's T-Y-R-E here. Okay, they spell it correctly for the UK, but to my eye, it looks like what?
It looks great.
They say that they have technology that can reduce the problem, and I'm not sure I believe them.
Well, they're getting rid of some of the consequences, but the tires still remain, as the picture shows you.
Yes, that's absolutely true, and that is a problem. And, you know, every once in a while you hear some horror story about somebody who owns some plot of land, and somebody's been dumping tires on it, and then the EPA comes and says, you have to clean that up. And the person says, well, I didn't put them there. And the EPA says, we don't care. You own the land. It's your problem.
And it is a big problem because they don't go away.
That's right.
We got to figure out something useful to do with these things.
Well, they do have uses, but they're not great enough uses to make it worthwhile worrying about them. I've known people who used them for reinforcing steep slopes in their gardens, and they're used, as you know, Tom, to be buffers on the sides of ships and boats.
Yeah, but that's a drop in the bucket.
It's a drop in the bucket, and these things are a problem. And one of the things that comes to mind is a fire that happened in the middle of a pile of tires. I think it was in Virginia years ago.
Very nice.
And they just kept burning and burning and burning, and they had 1 million tires there. And you know, the fire companies would come in and try to put it out, and they couldn't put it out. So I don't know.
Well, it's Tire Collective, and it's interesting they tell about its origin.
Yeah.
It has created a wheel-mounted device that collects the tiny particles
Yes.
of rubber on electrostatically charged copper plates.
Yes.
And they're hoping that this patented device will tackle this pollution at its source, where the rubber meets the road.
Yes.
They're still left with the tires, though.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica, and we have
a picture of a hand.
A hand, and the title of the picture is Hope. And that actually is the title.
Yeah, it is the name of the title. Can renewable energy visions of the future actually be within reach?
The passage of the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act in the United States has opened up hope that this is just a start, that other renewable energy and sustainability visions of the future might be within our grasp. Let's take a look at the all-electric crystal ball. And what did
Well, we're looking at ball, we're going to see the social and lifestyle changes that could become commonplace if renewable energy were to become society's default.
Yeah.
And the article was interesting. It describes these changes and it ends up on these pipe dreams?
We're going to have to accept some of these changes that look absolutely outrageous sooner or later, because if we don't, we're going to wind up being cold in the winter, hot in the summer, and starving year round. And people in places like Miami are going to be swimming to work, and it's just, we don't have a sustainable lifestyle, and we have to build a sustainable lifestyle. My blog has a motto, and the motto is, if it isn't sustainable, its condition is terminal. And that's where we are. We don't have a sustainable lifestyle. So the lifestyle that we've got as a country, as a world, as a society, is going toward chaos. That's where we're going. That's where we're heading. And we have to stop that, or it will stop us. That's the choice.
I guess you're right. I mean, they've talked about some of the things that are going to happen or should happen.
Yeah.
Batteries are going to play a crucial role in storing energy.
Yes.
Electrifying transportation.
Yes.
Balancing power grids. So
Yes.
batteries are going to be important.
Yes, but we're going to have to change the way we eat.
Well, they're going to decarbonize air travel.
We have to change the way we travel everywhere.
Sustainable agriculture. We're going to have to start regenerative farming.
That's right. Now, technologies are not entirely developed for these things, but they are being developed. So this is
Doable.
What's that?
They're doable.
It's doable. But you have to convince a person who wants a burger. If it turns out that we're switching from burgers to crickets, you have to convince people to do that. And the word I've heard from people who have eaten crickets, and I have not, is that they're amazingly good to eat. They're just very, very delicious. But
I almost came close to eating one once.
What?
I almost came close to eating them.
Did you? Well, I had.
I eat these things regularly, and they relish them.
Yes, I had a friend who went to Thailand, and I asked him, how is the pad thai? And he said, some places it's good, some places it's not so good. And he said there's one dish in Thailand which is guaranteed to be great wherever you go, and that's fried crickets.
Yeah.
And I read about, I think it was Angelina Jolie who had she has a bunch of adopted kids. If it's not her, then it's some other person in entertainment who has a bunch of adopted kids from all over the world. And she wants each of the adopted children to stay connected to their own ethnicity. So she had an adopted child from Southeast Asia, and I think it was Thailand, and she got a serving of a bag of fried crickets to give to the child. And of course this little kid was sharing this with their brothers and sisters, and pretty soon all of them were just demanding crickets, and they were eating those crickets like French fries. And that's what they wanted. But if you think about it, you look at this cricket, you realize it almost looks like a lobster.
Yes, very much so.
And I remember sitting down one day, and we went out for dinner, and my big thing when I was a kid was to have lobster. And I ordered lobster, and it came, and I looked at it and thought, that thing looks like a cockroach. And it took me about 5 seconds to get beyond that. Tom, we're out of time altogether, so we're going to...
I remember being in a restaurant one time where a woman had ordered a lobster, and then it got there in front of her, and she looked at it, and she started crying. It's looking at me.
Well, we're going to tell everybody to have a satisfactorily exquisite week. I've put
We
that
got some
up.
pretty good stuff this week, and
Yeah.
the news is more good than bad, but
Yeah.
there's still a lot of bad out there.
There's some stuff out there these days that I think is desperate, but we have to wave goodbye. Y'all come back now, you hear?
Waving.
You got that, Tom? Y'all
Yeah.
come back now, you hear?
Absolutely, you're
Okay.
getting it.
I'm getting it, slowly but surely. Bye-bye.
Adios.
Adios.